so my English won't be really good, and it's not really good in the first place, but especially tonight. So tonight I'm going to read another fairy tale by Grimm, with this wonderful book that I love so much. It's just so beautiful. So I already read Rapunzel a few months ago, and another fairy tale called something like Rumpelstiltskin or something like that. I'm not sure. It is hard to pronounce. And tonight I'm going to read in English. It is Little Red Riding Hood. Okay, so Little Red Riding Hood. I hope that I'm pronouncing that well. And if I do mistakes in my pronunciation or in the way I speak, please correct me in the comments, because I do English video to improve my English. So don't be shy and correct me, please. Please, please. So Little Red Riding Hood in France, it is called le petit chaperon rouge. Le petit chaperon rouge, le petit chaperon rouge. Okay, let's begin. Once upon a time, there was a dear little girl who was loved by everyone who looked at her, but most of all by her grandmother, and there was nothing that she would not have given to the child. Once she gave her a little cap of red velvet, which suited her so well that she would never wear anything else, so she was always called Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother said to her, "Come, Little Red Riding Hood, here is a piece of cake and a bottle of wine. Take them to your grandmother. She is ill and weak, and they will do her good. Set out before it gets hot, and when you are going, walk nicely and quickly, and do not run off the path, or you may fall and break the bottle, and then your grandmother will get nothing. And when you go into her room, don't forget to say good morning, and don't peep into every corner before you do it." So there is a little illustration picture right here. With Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf. "I will take great care," said Little Red Riding just below. You surely must know it, replied Little Red Riding Hood. The wolf thought to himself, what a tender young creature, what a nice plump mouthful. She will be better to eat than the old woman. I must act craftily, so as to catch both. So he walked for a short time by the side of Little Red Riding Hood, and then he said, See, Little Red Riding Hood, how pretty the flowers are about here. Why do you not look around? I believe too that you do not hear how sweetly the little birds are singing. You walk gravely along, and if you were going to school while everything else out here in the wood is merry. Little Red Riding Hood raised her eyes, and when she saw the sunbeams dancing here and there through the trees and pretty flowers growing everywhere, she thought, suppose I take grandmother a fresh nosegay. That would please her too. It is so early in the day that I shall still get there in good time. And so she ran from the path into the wood to look for flowers. And whenever she had picked one, she fancied that she saw a still prettier one farther on and ran after it, and so got deeper and deeper into the wood. Meanwhile, the wolf ran straight to the grandmother's house and knocked at the door. Who is there? Little Red Riding Hood, replied the wolf. She is bringing cake and wine. Open the door. And there is another illustration. I'm not sure of the word. And you can see Little Red Riding Hood here, and the wolf in the grandmother's clothes. Lift the latch, called out the grandmother. I am too weak and cannot get up. The wolf lifted the latch. The door flew open, and without saying a word, he went straight to the grandmother's bed and devoured her. Then he put on her clothes, dressed himself in her cap, laid himself in a bed, and drew the curtains. Little Red Riding Hood, however, had been running about picking flowers, and when she had gathered so many that she could carry no more, she remembered her grandmother and set out on the way to her. She was surprised to find the cottage doors standing open, and when she went into the room, she had such a strange feeling that she said to herself, "Oh dear, how uneasy I feel today, and at other times. I like being with grandmother so much." She called out, "Good morning," but received no answer, so she went to the bed and drew back the curtains. There lay a grandmother with a cap pulled far over her face and looking very strange. "Oh, grandmother," she said, "what big ears you have." "The better to hear you is my child," was the reply. "But, grandmother, what big eyes you have," she said. "The better to see you is my dear." "But, grandmother, what large hands you have." "The better to hug you with." "Oh, but, grandmother, what a terrible big mouth you have." "The better to eat you with." And scarcely had the wolf said this, than with one bound just passing the house and thought to himself, "How the old woman is snoring. I must just see if she wants anything." So he went into the room, and when he came to the bed, he saw that the wolf was lying in it. "Do I find thee here, thou old sinner?" said he. "I have long thought thee." Then, just as he was going to fire at him, it occurred to him that the wolf might have devoured the grandmother, and that she might still be saved. So he did not fire, but took a pair of scissors and began to cut open the stomach of the sleeping wolf. When he had made 2 snips, he saw the little Red Riding Hood shining, and then he made 2 snips more, and the little girl sprang out crying, "Oh, how frightened I have been! How dark it was inside the wolf!" And after that, the aged grandmother came out alive also, but scarcely able to breathe. Red Riding Hood, however, quickly fetched great stones with which they filled the wolf's body. And when he awoke, he wanted to run away, but the stones were so heavy that he fell down at once and fell dead. Then all 3 were delighted. The huntsman drew off the wolf's skin and went home with it. The grandmother ate the cake and drank the wine which Red Riding Hood had brought, and revived. But Red Riding Hood thought to herself, "As long as I live, I will never by myself leave the path to run into the wood, when my mother has forbidden me to do so." It is also related that once when Red Riding Hood was again taking cakes to the old grandmother, another wolf spoke to her and tried to entice her from the path. Red Riding Hood, however, was on a guard, and went straight forward on her way and told the grandmother that she had met the wolf, and that he had said good morning to her, but with such a wicked look in his eyes that if they had not been on the public road, she was certain he would have eaten her up. "Well," said the grandmother, "we will shut the door that he may not come in." Soon afterwards, the wolf knocked and cried, "Open the door, grandmother. I am Little Red Riding Hood, and I am fetching you some cakes." But they did not speak or open the door. So the grey bird stole twice or thrice round